To configure the Aheb 0808 OSDP expansion board with Atlas, a few steps will need to be taken. First, you will need to make sure your Atlas firmware is up to date and on version 3.7.5 or higher. Then we will need to make sure that no readers are set to communicate via ZK-RS485. Since the Aheb 0808 communicates via OSDP, the Atlas panel cannot have any conflicting protocols communicating on the RS485 port. However, you can have OSDP readers and the Aheb connected at the same time. You will just want to make sure they are assigned different addresses. To add the Aheb, navigate to and click on Modify. From the drop-down list, select Add ZK-Teco Aheb 0808. Give the device a name so you can identify it. Select the default COM1 as your port and then select the OSDP address you have assigned it. Click Add and wait for the device to come online. Once the device comes online, you will be able to click on it and configure it. The inputs will also show as faulted because they have not been configured yet. There are multiple options and scenarios in which you can configure the Aheb board to operate as it best suits your needs. Prior to configuring, make sure that you have correctly wired the board and the EOL resistors needed for your aux inputs. Scenario 1, using this as an aux-in to aux-out connection. If there is a short on an aux-in of the board, it will trigger an aux-out. For example, let's make the aux 1 inch of the board trigger the aux 1 out. The aux 1 out could be wired to anything from a buzzer to a floodlight to an emergency light. You can see this function while monitoring the real-time events. Scenario 2, using the aux-in to trigger an emergency lockdown or emergency open. Select the aux input you wish to use, choose linkage as the function, and then select the desired linkage type. For this example, we'll set this as an emergency lockdown. You can see in the events that when that input is shorted, it then activates the emergency lockdown. Scenario 3, using the aux-in as a supervised input or as a door sensor on a non-access controlled door. On the left-hand side of the screen, click on the Aheb board and then go to Modify. From the drop-down, select Add Access Point. Name the access point and select which input to use. Click Add and you will see this input turn into a door sensor. In the real-time monitoring, you can now see the status of that door opening and closing without any door forced open alerts. Let's look at some additional features before going to our last scenario. Now that we have set this input as a door sensor, we can configure an output to be triggered based on the door state. Let's set this as a door held open alarm to trigger an aux output. Now in the real-time events, we can see when this gets triggered and opens the output. Once the door is closed, it will go back to its normal state. Another feature is that you can also flag these events as notifications. By configuring notifications, you can select this type of event to receive an email. If you are an Atlas Cloud customer, you can also choose to have this sent via text message. You can also configure the monitoring of the door input by going to Configuration, Doors, and selecting that input. You have multiple options like the ability to mask certain events, schedules, and times. The Atlas interface also has the option to monitor the status of the Aheb, as well as its inputs and outputs. Under Inputs, besides monitoring, you have the ability to mask and unmask an input. Under Outputs, you can also check on the status, activate, deactivate, and even send a trigger to the outputs. Scenario 4, using the aux out to be triggered by a door forced open on the Atlas panel. We can set the aux out to be triggered by a door forced open event on Atlas Door 1. First, we'll demonstrate a valid card read and door opening that is monitored by its sensor. Now, let's force this door open without a valid card read. You can see that door is forced open and the aux output has been activated. These have just been some of the scenarios in which the Aheb I/O expansion board can be used. Thank you for watching. For more information, please visit zktechousa.com.